Okay. Good evening. My name is Meredith Sandine. I'm a first grade teacher at McGee Elementary School, and today I will present chapters 1 through 3 of Learning by Doing. I'll explain the main ideas from the text and show how they connect to my own PLC experiences. Okay, in this slide, I'll explain what a professional learning community or PLC is. A PLC is not just a meeting, it's a structure that brings educators together to collaborate regularly with the shared goal of improving student learning. The key word here being regularly. At my school, we meet once a week, every week. The day that we meet changes per 9 weeks. So this 9 weeks, we're meeting on every Tuesday during our planning period. Next 9 weeks, it'll be Wednesday. Third 9 weeks, it'll be on Thursday. And then on the fourth 9 weeks, it could either be on Friday or Monday. We haven't decided yet. We meet one day a week, every week for our planning period. And it is focused around data and intentional conversations. The purpose is to shift the focus from teaching in isolation to working as a team. And I have noticed a huge difference since I've been back in the classroom the past 2 years. The benefits of having a true PLC with your team teachers. On this slide, I'm going to discuss the 3 key assumptions behind PLCs. First, the emphasis is always on what students are learning, not just on what teachers are teaching. For so many years, we've focused on curriculum, and that's not necessarily what needs to be our focus. Yes, every school needs an HQIM that has been tested and proved to be of high quality. But that's not just what we need to focus on. We need to focus on what are the students learning and how are they learning it? What strategies are teachers using to teach their students? Second, PLCs thrive on collaboration, meaning educators work interdependently. So the teachers need to collaborate. They need to work together, not just plan their own lesson plan and march to the rhythm of their own drum, but to work together and plan as a team, because ultimately we are all teaching the same standards and our goal is the same, to make sure that all students learn. And finally, they are results oriented, meaning the team uses data to drive decisions and improvements. At our school, we use data every single week. It could be literacy, it could be math, depending on what we decide to talk about. But every week we talk about some form of data to drive our instruction for the following week. So the first big idea centers around a relentless focus on learning. Teams ask, what exactly do we want all students to learn? And this kind of gets you started on looking at those essential standards and breaking those standards down to know exactly what do we want students to learn. This creates clarity around essential standards and learning targets. So the past few years, we've really delved deep into essential standards and our learning targets and making sure that we know exactly what we're teaching and not just teaching the curriculum that we're given, but we're actually teaching to the standard, which in my opinion is the most important way to teach, is to that standard. The second big idea is collaboration. I've already talked about this a little bit, but when you collaborate as a team, the students benefit. So teachers create common formative assessments to monitor learning. And the key question is, how will we know if each student has learned the essential outcomes? So when we collaborate, we before we ever got the school year started, we had common formative assessments already made. Every standard that we teach has a CFA that goes along with it, along with a summative assessment with a rubric that we add to our report card, which is a standards-based report card, and I'll get to that in a minute. But we collaborated as a team, and they did a lot of the work before I got to first grade. They did a lot of the work already before I got there, of making the CFAs. We have tweaked them some to match the standard more clearly, but for the most part, the CFAs were already formed whenever I got into this grade level. The third big idea is emphasis on results. And this is one of my favorite things to talk about. Educators must be responsive and intervening when students struggle and providing extensions for those who already understand it. So at our school, we have interventions every day. Monday and Wednesday. Monday and Tuesday is literacy interventions for 30 minutes each day. Wednesday, Thursday is math interventions for 30 minutes each day. And then on Friday, we progress monitor. Every other Friday, we alternate math and literacy. So I'm going to kind of read my notes to kind of keep me on track with what I wanted exactly to say. But the focus is not just teaching, but ensuring that learning happens. In our school, students receive interventions every day. I already went through this. We made a screener this summer that we'll use to progress monitor our students and how they are doing in those interventions. In first grade, we have 12 to 13 interventionists. So it really, really helps that our groups are small. And like in my classroom, in my intervention class, I have no more than 5. So I'm able to pull a small group with those students. We did struggle with knowing how to place these students. What I'm strong in, the other teacher might not be strong in. So for example, I'm strong in math. And so I felt like it would benefit me if I was able to help those lower students get the education that they needed in small groups in math. And so I'm helping the lowest students in math and literacy. One of my team teachers, she felt like she would be better helping those bubble students or those students that kind of fall in the mid-range that need a little bit more pushing, but they understand the basics. So she is helping those in her class, but still a small group. I don't think any of us have more than 8 students. So it's very beneficial that we have that small of a class. And we develop these these groups because of our already results. We looked at our already results, and we actually used a feature on already to help us group these students based on standards. So we looked at the standards and what they hit what they hit low or average or high on, and then we kind of grouped them based on those levels. I've already said okay, so that's kind of how we talk about what if they don't learn it or what if they already know it. And that's how we built those groups, because if they don't already know it, they come to me or the other teachers that teach the lower ones. And the ones that already know it, they either get pulled at the very top tier or they're going to one of the other teachers that are kind of mid-range. So in this slide, I'll explain how a PLC develops shared mission, vision, and values. The mission explains why the school exists. The vision outlines what we hope to achieve. And the values describe how we will behave to achieve our vision. Those norms that we set during our PLCs are so, so important. And it's hard. Sometimes when we get in there, we want to talk about, what field trips we have coming up next, or important dates, school picture day, or things like that we might have coming up. And so it's important that we stay focused on the goal during our PLC time so that we don't get off track and then we don't get our goals met during that PLC time, because, it's only a 40-minute period that we have to do this. And sometimes we try to pack so much into it that if we get off topic even for a few minutes, then we don't get our full goal met for that day. When grade levels and school share the same mission, vision, and values, we are more able to provide the best instruction for our students. So if we share the same mission and vision as our school, that all students will learn, as teachers, we are going to do everything in our power to make sure that all students learn. We are pulling those interventions. We are pushing those students that need to be challenged. We are going back a little bit for those students that need for us to slow down, but we are making sure that what we do is best for our students. On slide 8, we're going to talk about SMART goals, which is specific, measurable, attainable, results-oriented, and time-bound. We just developed our SMART goals, or actually, I guess I should say, we put the finishing touches on our SMART goals this summer. SMART goals keep teams focused and accountable by setting goals that are specific, measurable, attainable, results-oriented, and time-bound. PLCs ensure progress is intentional and trackable. like I said, we did not really finish making these until this summer. We had talked about what they were and had a general idea of how to create them, but we didn't actually dive deep into them and put the finishing touches until this summer. And I was able to be a part of that, and it was a great learning experience, I guess I should say, because it really helps you understand your standards better. So after developing our SMART goals, I can better see how each standard needs to be met for each student. And in our school, I want to say it's grades K through 4 right now. I don't want to speak for 5th grade. It could be K5. I'm not sure. And our building just goes K5. We are all using standards-based report card. It took us a long time to get there. A lot of convincing that this is what's best for our students, and not just for our students, but for our parents also, because now when they get their report card, it doesn't just say, oh, they have an A in spelling. It says, oh, they made a 2 on the floss rule, or they made a 1 on digraphs. It breaks it down, and it's very specific. And on our standards-based report card, we have our SMART goals there. So the parents can actually see, like, okay, this is exactly what they didn't do well on, and hopefully they will help their student reach that goal by using their standards-based report card. And we can easily explain to the parent, hey, they did really well on floss, doubling FLS and Z, but when it comes to digraphs, they're still struggling a little bit. So they didn't get a C in spelling, but instead they're able to see exactly what they need to work on. It helps parents. Okay. I think there was something else I wanted to say about SMART goals. In our standards-based report card, we have each, like if we have digraphs, it has SH digraph, CH digraph, TH, WH, QU. And so we can go in there and like check, okay, they got SH digraph. They're still working on CH. They got TH. And so it really breaks it down. And not only in a way that we can see and discuss in our PLCs, but how parents can see also. Okay, on my last slide, this highlights the role of evidence. So PLCs use CFAs to track learning and then analyze data to identify strengths and areas of improvement. When we come together as a grade level on our PLC meeting days, we bring data with us. So in our agenda, we have a spot that has a table with each teacher's name. For example, tomorrow at our PLCs, we are discussing our floss test that we gave last week. I had to plug in my data today with how many students scored a 3, how many students scored a 2, how many scored a 1, and how many scored a 0. Miraculously, all 15 of my students scored a 3. And so I had 100% pass rate. But I still could learn from other teachers, if I still had some that, when they wrote the word, I'm trying to think, when they wrote the word puff, if they still weren't sure if they doubled that F, and I went to them and I said, okay, let's think about it. Do you hear a short vowel? And I had to work with them that way because this was just a CFA. It wasn't a summative assessment with the rubric that went into the grade book. It was just a CFA, but I could still learn from teachers, hey, how are y'all helping them remember that after a short vowel, you double those F, L, S, and Z's? And we have those conversations, and they are very, very meaningful. I ask for tips all the time. I seem to struggle with writing, and so Miss Jamie teaches first grade with me, and she's a very strong writing teacher. I went to her just last week and asked her some tips on how can I be a better writing teacher. And so that goes back to that collaboration. We have to, swallow our pride sometimes and realize that, hey, another teacher might be stronger in something that I'm not so strong in. Let me go to them and ask them how to do it. But I kind of got off. So every PLC meeting, we discuss a different piece of data. It might be a literacy assessment we took the week before, math assessment, or iReady results. Before we started taking classroom assessments, we did use iReady to kind of look at who's below, who's on, and who's above. And we still talk about those regularly in our meetings. In our discussions, we can talk about how one teacher might have been more successful than another and what she did to find that success. And for every student standard on our report card, we have a CFA and a summative assessment with a rubric. So the only standards on our report card are our essential standards. And we give CFAs, like for example, we are teaching floss rule for 2 weeks. So we gave a CFA last week and we'll give the summative this week. But that kind of gives us a chance to go to our PLCs and say, hey, my kids really struggled with this. What can I do to help? Miss Jamie, I see that your kids really did well. How did you teach this? Did you do something different? What strategies did you use to teach the floss rule? The rubrics that go along with the summative assessments were developed very intentionally while looking at the SMART goals for each standard. When talking about data-driven decision-making, we use our progress monitoring screener that is given every 2 weeks. I talked about that a couple of slides ago, to adjust our intervention groups. So our intervention groups should change every 2 weeks based on the data that we get from those screeners. And we developed those screeners this summer with our PLC person. So these adjustments and discussions take place during our PLC meetings with intentional conversations. So again, making sure that we come in, we have our data ready, we know what we're going to talk about. That helps us stay on track and get as much done as we can and make it very beneficial for us so that we can be helpful and beneficial for the students. So like I said before, several years ago, our PLC meetings were a time to kind of talk about field trips and what important dates are coming up. And I've really seen a major shift in our school for the better, going towards that professional learning community and really benefiting from PLC meetings so that we're not just in there talking and gossiping and having those non-beneficial meetings when it comes to student learning, because we have to remember that our main goal as teachers is that all students learn. And when we collaborate with other teachers, we're able to feed off of them and get ideas and strategies that they use that might help our classroom. So that's all I have. And there are my references that I use in our Learning by Doing book. Thank you.